Hello, it is a new day and I figured it was time to finally reorganize my bookshelf because I have been accumulating a lot of new books lately and it just became a mess. So it is time. So I figured we could go through the books that I have, and I kind of wanted to organize it by TBR and then books I've already read, and then down here is like, I'm not really gonna mess with this bottom shelf because it's a lot of like study books, my husband's books, like books on health, wellness, things like that. So that's just gonna kind of stay there where it is. Why don't we start with the already read and loved / I'm keeping shelf, and we can kind of start there. Let's see, I took all of them out and kind of already divvied them up into piles, and so yeah, let's get started. So to start out with, on the shelf of books that I have read, we have, let's see if I can hold this whole thing up. We have the entire Twilight, I don't even know what you would call this, saga series, all of everything. Okay, we have, let's start like this. We have good old Twilight. Next to Twilight, we have Midnight Sun because I just feel like that makes sense. Then New Moon, oops, Eclipse, beautiful Eclipse. Then we have The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner because your collection is not complete without this one, of course. Actually, I just got this at Half Price Books. This is like, I guess you could say, part of my recent haul. I got this just so that I could feel like my collection was complete. Then Breaking Dawn, because Breaking Dawn. And then we have Life and Death because it just felt right. This came out before Midnight Sun and I was craving the feeling that Twilight gives me, and so I got this. I am only about maybe halfway through and it's fun, it's cool. It's Twilight, just flip-flopped, but I think eventually I'll finish this book. So yeah, that is going to go on the books I've read shelf. Then I have the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. Trilogy. I actually borrowed these books from a friend when I originally read them, and so I did not own any sort of like copy of them. When the box set went on sale, I picked it up. I have never actually like flipped through these pages because I read my friend's copy. So they're like perfect and beautiful and everything. But I wanted my own copy so that eventually, if I go to reread it, I will have it all complete. And then we have kind of like a random menagerie of books here. So we have Dance of Thieves, which is my most recent finish. Wonderful, already on to Vow of Thieves. 5 out of 5, seriously wonderful. I think I rated this book a 4.5 out of 5, but Vow of Thieves is on its way to being a 5 out of 5. Then a couple books that I read when I was a kid that I just fell in love with is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. Classic story, great story. One of my favorite books as a kid, so I had to keep that on the shelf. And then I read a couple of these like kind of like diary type books as a kid, and I absolutely enjoyed the writing, enjoyed the storytelling. So this one is by Harriet Jacobs. It's called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. And then this one has probably been my favorite as a kid. I think I read this book want to say like 4 different times. This one's called A Picture of Freedom, The Diary of Claudie, a Slave Girl, from Belmont Plantation in Virginia in 1859. Really good. Good story, heartbreaking story. Then we have Beach Read, probably my favorite Emily Henry book. I have tried to dive into a couple of her other books and I have DNF'd them, so that's kind of sad, but Beach Read was like my first book that I read really getting back into reading as an adult, and it was a good first book. And then I have this kind of like random one. It says, "Please find this. I wrote this for you and only you." It's a book of poems. The book is like beautiful. So I read through this whole thing. I enjoyed the poems. It's not something that like I would probably go out and buy like a bunch of, but I thought this was sweet. The general premises of like putting something out there for someone that you may have loved in the past or wanted to reconnect with or whatever. I liked it. So let's go ahead and put these on my shelf. Now I would like to move on to the top shelf of books that I would like to read. So we have a nice pile right here of books that I have picked up that I would like to read. First off, we have The Trial of Tara by Jack Williamson. I picked this up at Half Price Books a while ago. It was like in the little, I don't know if this is just our Half Price Books or if this is normal for Half Price Books, but they have like a rack of books in a bag that are like really old sci-fi novels, and my dad and I decided to just pick one out and we were gonna read it and tell each other what we thought. So this book is from 1950s-ish, so I was just genuinely curious. I thought the cover was interesting looking. Next we have Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This story seemed interesting. It's about the rapture, kind of, and how this particular demon and angel don't really want the rapture to happen because they've enjoyed their life on Earth and like wreaking havoc and doing whatever they're doing, and they just have been enjoying Earth. They team up together to kind of prevent the rapture from happening because they want to continue living their life however they want to live it. So I thought that was an interesting story. Then we have Harry Potter 1, 2, and 3. I finished reading the first one, but it felt wrong not keeping them all together. I'm halfway through the second one, and hopefully I would like to finish the Harry Potter series by early next year. So yes, this is in my TBR shelf. I'm very excited to get through that. I love Harry Potter, but I have not read it. So, well, now I've read the first book. I'm halfway through the second one, but I absolutely love the Harry Potter story. Love the movies. And I kind of felt like a fake fan, never reading the books, so I figured it was about time. The first book, absolutely loved. So much more detailed than the movie, and not gonna lie, I cried when Neville got his 5 points, so already off to a good start. And a book that I recently picked up at Half Price Books that you saw in my last video is The Bone Witch. I'm really in a fantasy phase right now, and the back of this book sounded super interesting. It's about a witch who has the ability to bring things back from the dead, and she's kind of ostracized for her power. So seems really interesting. I was talking with a friend that I made at Half Price Books, and she was saying that she's been wanting to read this. Six of Crows. I really have been wanting to read this book. I've had this book sitting on my shelf for probably 6 months now, and I have not read it, only because I'm trying to decide if I want to start at Shadow and Bone and like read literally the entire thing, or if I want to read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom and then like kind of hop around the different like sectors of the series. Not really sure what to do. So if you have any recommendations on how best to read this entire like universe, I guess maybe the right word, let me know, because I've been hesitant to start this because I'm not sure if I should start with Shadow and Bone. So yeah, let me know. Then you guys saw in my recent Barnes & Noble pickup, we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I'm super excited to dive into this one. This is going to be probably one of my next books, either after Vow of Thieves or after one of these other ones. I'm really excited to read this. Then I also picked up at Half Price Books when I went there the other day. It's called The Pilgrim's Regress. The Pilgrim's Regress? It's called The Pilgrim's Regress by C.S. Lewis. And this book seemed really interesting because it's like C.S. Lewis writing a fantasy story that kind of parallels biblical stories. Is kind of what I got from the synopsis on the back, which I thought would be kind of interesting to see how he kind of deals with that parallel. I'm just really curious about this book. Okay, that was, oh, we have one more in the pile. We have the Southern Book Club. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak right now. We have The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I started on this book, let's see where I got to. I got to page 49. It wasn't what I needed in the moment, so I did set this down temporarily. We will get back to it, just not right now. So that is that. And then, let's see. We have this random assortment of books, which is a very strange assortment of books. We have Brave New Medicine. My mother-in-law actually gifted this to me. It's a doctor talking about her path to healing her autoimmune disease, so curious about that. Then I talked about this in a previous video. That sounds fun. Kind of like a self-help book, motivational book. Excited to dive into that. I have the book U-Turn by Ashley Stahl. I found her also via podcast, and just kind of similar premise to That Sounds Fun, but this is more like career driven versus like this is like yourself driven, but this is kind of her advice on designing like a dream career for yourself. Then we have the Hocus Pocus and the all new sequel book. I did recently pick this up at Half Price Books when I was just there, and I know the movie's coming out, but I don't know, for some reason I was really drawn to reading the sequel because I love Hocus Pocus, and I had seen this at Barnes & Noble like so many times. It was like $13 at Barnes & Noble, and I got it for $5 at Half Price Books, so I kind of couldn't say no when I found it at Half Price Books. So I'm curious to kind of peruse through this come October. And then I have Terry Brooks' Magic Kingdom for sale. This is one of my dad's favorite books, and he convinced me to start it. So far, I'm liking it a lot, but I did put it down to read other things, but I'm hoping to finish this by the end of the year. It also turns out to be my father-in-law's favorite book, which is kind of funny. So I guess I really gotta read it now. And then we also have this little funny book. It says On What Grounds by Cleo Coyle, I think. And it's a book that I actually grabbed from one of the little libraries around town, and it's like a murder mystery based in a coffee shop. Yeah, so I picked it up. It was the only book in there that seemed interesting, and I made the trek all the way there, so I wanted to take something. I'll let you know if it's like an amazing story that you have to read. I'm curious. Okay, last stack of things that need to be read by me, which is just crazy. So we have C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces. I've had this book probably since I was in high school, and I have not read it, and I really like C.S. Lewis's writing, so I just need to do the thing and read it. So I'm curious about this one. I borrowed this from a friend, In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. I'm really curious about this story. It seems like a really great story, really interesting plot. I need to read this sooner than later so that I can give it back to her so that she can have her book back. I recently picked up The Alchemist because I really loved the book Siddhartha. I read it in high school and just really connected with the story, and this seemed like it had like obviously not the same story, but a relatively similar premise to the story, so I wanted to read this as well. This is on the list as well. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I talked about this in a previous video. Picked this up at the thrift store. Curious to hear about this story. We have The Inheritance Games. I've heard so many people say that this is an amazing book. One of my friends that I met at Half Price Books is about to reread the series, so I'm like, okay, I need to just make it happen. And yeah, so this is also there. I have Confess by Colleen Hoover. This is our September book club book, so I will be reading this in September. I'm excited. This is going to be my second Colleen Hoover book to read, and I'm curious to see if I will like it as much as Verity. I feel like Verity was an interesting first Colleen Hoover book, and I don't know if I will like her like more traditional love stories as much, but I'm curious. And then a couple other Colleen Hoover books that I have borrowed from a friend is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. We also have November 9 by Colleen Hoover. And then she gave me Layla because she doesn't care for Paranormal Activity type stuff, so I'm curious to read Layla. It gives me Verity vibes, so really curious to read this one. And then this is the Emily Henry book that I tried to read, People We Meet on Vacation. Couldn't really get into it. Let's see, how far did I actually make it into it? It looks like I made it onto page 14. Which is really not that far, so I think I need to give this another chance. So we'll see about that one. And then I have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. So yeah, that's all the books that I need to read, which is a lot. So I need to get going. I need to get moving on my TBR because we've got a lot of books here. So let's put them back on the, oh, I forgot one. We have a manga. Not really sure how to pronounce it, but this is the first book of the Fruits Basket series, which I don't think I'm going to really like read and own all of the Fruits Basket comics, but it is my favorite show. It is my comfort show. It is one that I watch every spring to fight seasonal depression because it is just such an amazing show. And yeah, highly recommend anybody watching it. There's 2 different versions. Both versions are great. Yeah, highly recommend the show. Curious to see how the actual first book holds up to that. Now, let's get putting this stuff back on the shelf. last but not least, we have classics that I have that are going to go up here on top of my bookshelf. So once I go through them, I will do a better angle so you can see kind of how I lay them out. And I'm not going to go through all of them because there's just a lot, but I will pick out a couple to tell you about. So I recently got this beautiful edition of A Little Princess. Absolutely love this story. What a heart-wrenching story in the best way. So yeah, this cover is just absolutely beautiful. This edition is stunning. I have Siddhartha of Mice and Men. We have an edition of Emma by Jane Austen. Good story, love this story. We have a copy of Anne Frank's diary. I also have the Essential Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. It's a big beefy boy. I've read through part of it, not all of it. And then lastly, we have a set of the Harvard classics that my dad gifted me. And I think that, I don't know, I guess I would like to read them eventually, but it's very intimidating. So I think if I was going to start on this, the first one that I would read is Dante, because it seems like the most interesting to me. So yeah, those are my classics. Let's get them on the shelf. Okay, let's give you a little overview of the bookshelf. So here's our little classics section. Here we have our TBR, and then we have our books that we've read. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today while I reorganize my bookshelf and get it to a place where I'm really excited, and I actually have some space here to fill in books that I've read and maybe add a few, I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!